Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sisters show, where we have down-to-earth discussions on spirituality, metaphysics, paranormal, and healing topics. The Sedona Soul Sisters are Terry Ann Russell, Roz Reynolds, and myself, Ivory Lanou. We have offices in Sedona where we see clients from all over the world. Today's topic is You Can Make the World a Better Place. If you have questions or comments and you're hearing the show live, you can raise your hand and ask them, or you can go into the chat room, which I'm going to open right now, and ask it in there. We'll be glad to answer it. And if you're watching later on our YouTube channel, you can email us your question, and that email address is in the information about the show right there on YouTube. So we'll answer them at any time. It's interesting, I know a lot of people are feeling kind of down about the way things are in our country and in the world right now. They feel some despair about it. And what I keep hearing is, what can I do as one person? What can I possibly do? And there's a tendency, like, they think there's nothing they could do, so they kind of want to give up. But the truth is, you do matter. What you do matters, and it's the little things adding up that count.
It's true. And I think, if you can put this just in your life pattern where you start your day or finish your day or both with positive affirmations and positive outlooks and prayers, and focusing on people's higher consciousness being elevated, people realizing, hey, my thoughts and words have power. And if we can get enough people focused on that and doing that, that does shift massive amounts of energy.
And I think it's very easy to sink down
Sorry.
into feeling despair, but the more you can be positive, the more you lift up, you start raising your frequency. I started making a list maybe 2 weeks ago, and I keep adding to it. I've got a long list here of things you can do. One of them I'm going to talk about, I think it's a big one for a couple of reasons, is donate your time, skills, or money to a cause you feel is worthy. And not only are you doing a good thing for somebody else, but it also takes your thought thinking in your head out of your own issues, and that allows you to start healing and lifting too. So if all you do is think about what's wrong, what you're upset about, what you're unhappy about, what you don't have, that's a good way to sink down into the mire. So that's one of the things I often am telling clients is I suggest you volunteer. Go volunteer somewhere, whatever is near and dear to your heart.
I think
that's true too.
Yeah, I think that's
spending that time in that space.
And I also think, we don't really talk about this much in our culture, but there is so much power of the telepathic abilities of people and animals. And animals, think, and they have emotions. Thinking and visualizing all of us on the same page, focusing on seeing things evolve and work out the way they need to, and everything working out for everyone's highest and best good. I mean, these are powerful thought processes that connect with other, other people, not even necessarily highly intuitive people. I feel like people get so busy, they're not even thinking about their intuitive information that's coming out, through for them. But that is still there, that energy of love, kindness, compassion. Everything is working out. Everything's going to turn out for the best,
I think so too. Just have that feeling of hope. We don't want to ever lose hope. Whatever it is you're feeling hopeless about, try to go inside and find that spark of hope for yourself. This is kind of a little fun one, and I thought about this. It may sound like, how is that helping make the world a better place? But if you create a bee and bird friendly garden, or just put some plants on your property, or have it in a pot on your patio, that that birds and bees were welcome, or a bird feed or a bird bath. Bees are a tremendous shortage in the world, and if we don't have enough bees, they can't pollinate. It affects our food supply. And birds, we're actually losing hundreds of thousands of millions of birds in the last few years. So there's a
Yeah.
shortage of both of these things. So if you can do that, it would be something you could do. It seems like a small thing, but especially the bee part is huge.
It's true.
I think this is such a simple one too. Just smile and say hello to people. How, I think it's gotten to this part. I don't know if it's because of spending so much time online and on our phones, and like that would draws you into yourself, into this small little world where you're not interacting with people as much. But I find most people just walk by and it's like they don't see people. They don't, there's no interaction. And when you smile and say hello, it seems to surprise them. But I know that I can feel that like lifts them too. So that's another way to spread some positivity, in your actions.
Have you ever noticed like even I used to do this in Southern California driving on the freeway. You're sitting in traffic, of course, mega amounts of traffic, and you're not moving. And you look over at the cars next to you and you can see the people absorbed in their own little world, or not happy, like they're stuck, they're scowling. And you just send them this big blast of love and good energy and a big smile on your face. 99% of those people respond with a big smile back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, our thinking, like in our consciousness of always sending help and healing to other people, is a pretty powerful thing you can do every day. You can do it every day.
People are so sensitive to our energy. We can affect them positively or negatively. So, what you do, how you go out there, if you go wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a ray of sunshine today, I'm going to lift people's spirit, I'm going to help them raise their frequency, you'll do that. And if you think, I want to get out of bed today,
Rah, 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 rah.
well, you're bringing everybody down around you too. So, and the higher your frequency is and you do that, the bigger effect you have on other people.
And keeping yourself in that mindset is work. I mean, I always laugh. I go, this is my job from God. I have to stop and think and get myself where I need to be so that I can do the work that I'm supposed to be doing.
I've told a few people, and it's the truth, and you know this, Rob, we've talked about it, that this line of work we're in, and we're not just like your typical psychic. Let me say that. Like, none of us are a typical psychic. This is not just a job or a career. This is a way of life. And it's a big commitment to make a decision to step into a mission and work.
It's a calling. I think it's a calling.
It is a calling.
There are a lot of professions, and there are a lot of things that people structure their life and live their life. That is truly a calling, and this definitely falls into that category. And if it's really funny because one of my kids said to me recently, I figured out what you do now, Mom. And what you actually do is just work at helping people all the time.
Yes, I think that's a perfect description.
And I totally agree. When I really thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, because your whole focus has to be, how can I make the world a better place? How can I help people? How can I improve the energy? And especially in this time, I mean, this is a very, dark time. It's a time of a lot of people, a lot of angry people, a lot of scared people, a lot of people focused on themselves to, a level of narcissism that's just amazing. And trying to send energy and to work with these people and to help them to improve that process within themselves and to work on themselves and to think, I can, I can do good works. I can help people. I can facilitate change. I can be a catalyst for change in a positive way.
And I know there's going to be people out there who listen and go, but I'm not like you. I haven't had a calling. If you feel an urge to make the world a better place, you're having a calling. You're having a calling. Nobody has to say, here, now it's your role too to try to make the world a better place. You just do it. You just start doing it. Here's another one, sprinkle kindness. What can you do to be kind to somebody? See them, I watch people. I've always been an observer. Let's say you're in a restaurant. I know there's not a lot open right now, but take COVID out of the picture. You're in a restaurant and your wait person seems scattered and they're not really paying good attention to you. Instead of getting upset about it, grumbling about it, take a look around. How many tables are they being asked to service at that time? Maybe they're the only wait person there. Maybe they have an impossible task. And even if that's not the case, think about what might be wrong. Maybe they have something really bad happening in their life right now, and they're just trying to hold it together and make a living at the same time. You're not going to make it better by being anything less than kind to them. So these little interactions we have are a test for all of us. How can I be kind in these circumstances? And sometimes it is extremely difficult. I would say a major challenge. We're talking about the work that we do being a calling, Terry Ann.
Okay. Sorry, my internet's really spotty. I'm trying on my phone now.
Yeah, I wondered, you look very different. So it's just a different camera, but I'm glad you're here. Treat
Isn't that
everybody the way
interesting?
you would like to be treated all of the time. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Hey, that sounds like the golden rule, doesn't it?
I say that all the time. It's something so simple. I cut out when you were talking about smiling at people, and it's really funny now because we all wear masks, so it's kind of hard to tell. But what I've noticed about people is there's like a different shine to their eyes when they're smiling, and they still have a mask on their face.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah. So it's interesting because normally you would focus on the mouth, but because we all have to wear masks now, we're more focused on the eyes. So I just thought that was interesting because I'm like, I'm smiling at everybody like it's normal, and I'm like, oh, they can't even see you.
But it is affecting interactions because a lot of people don't take the time to look at the eyes and they're not seeing the smile. And I'm noticing there's like more tension between people because they can't get the full effect of reading your emotions. So I am tempted, and I may do it, buy a mask that has a big smile printed on it.
I've seen
That
some
very
of those.
reason.
I love those.
I do too. I think that, and I know they have clear ones, but I suspect those would be difficult to breathe through, so those are out. I think this is a big one. Listen without passing judgment.
That is huge.
That's so hard. And there's a lot of people that are kind of dropping negativity bombs around by judging people in conversation or even with their reaction, their facial expression, their body language as they're hearing something. Again, I see this, So I don't know, that's something to think about. And if all of these things, there's more, but all these things just take attention. You have to pay attention to what you're doing, and you can't afford, if you want to make a difference, you can't afford to just dump your emotions on people because you feel better momentarily. That's making the world a little bit more negative.
And I think we all have these moods, we all have things going on. And I think when you realize that, when I realize that I'm just in such a grumpy mood and I'm not digging myself out of it, I just have to put myself in time out and go somewhere and work on myself, be working on my outlook, by my energy, my frequency. I have to get my frequency back up into the higher range so that I'm not being all grumpy and seeing everything, negative. And we all have these days, especially I I think one of the things that really helps me is when I start to get like that, I just cut off anything to do with the media. I don't want to I don't want to read any headlines. I don't want to hear anything. I'm just like, shut up. Just shut that down and shut it up and don't get sucked into this because everything is, you know, looked at in a less than positive, less than upbeat way.
Fear
So,
mongering, that's a big part of what news does so that you'll watch more news. But the last thing any of us need right now is help finding more fear. So, yeah, I think so. Be kind to yourself in that way and don't wallow in it. I can feel it in myself. I'm very in tune to my emotions, my energy. And if I'm reading the news and I feel it start to really affect me, I have to just stop. That's it.
yeah,
Done.
I put on music usually,
Mhm.
either one of the
Really have a lot.
solfeggios, so I can help my frequency elevate with the music using, higher, different megahertz and all that. But I really have to manage, and that's the key right there. That's the tool: management,
It is.
self-management, self-discipline.
You manage
Sometimes
And
we need to
things.
eat too. I know I get hangry.
Yeah.
And then like everything is going wrong and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't eat. If I eat, I'll probably feel better."
yeah, I have a
Nobody does well
bad
with this
habit of that.
garbage.
I have a really bad habit of that. In fact, when my kids were all little, they're going, "Oh, watch out, mom's hungry."
Yeah.
They knew.
Tell your loved ones that you love them and tell them often. And I think that goes for your friends, your family, whoever you love in your life. Don't withhold how you feel about them. Don't think they know, that they just know. People need to hear that more than ever right now. So there's frequency to words. I should have brought that book in here, but that Dr. Emoto has the books on the secret life of water. I think it's called Secrets of Water. He has a whole series of books.
Love that.
Guy. He's passed on now, but love him. And he did studies on the effects on of words, particular words on water molecules. And since we are so very much made up of water, he
Absolutely.
he put it out there that if it affects water molecules that way, what's it has to be affecting the water within humans that way. So the words like love, kindness, healing, thank you, those words are super high healing for humans. Oh, the angels just came in big. And then words like hate, oh my gosh, hate turned the water molecules to looking like radioactive waste. So we have to watch our words. We have to watch our thoughts.
And our thoughts too.
Vigilance. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the realities, one of the things for me, wake up things for me after I read Dr. Emoto's work and I really, considered it, thought about it, is water is a living thing.
Mhm.
Anything that is a living thing that has a life. Okay, we're not the judge of whether or not something truly is a living thing. Certainly not based on, somebody's analysis of it. But when we think about that, plants, animals, us, water, all of these things, if we are even thinking negative thoughts, those are experienced by all of these living beings. So that's a huge impact you have to think of that you're having.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to
Yeah.
make the world a better place, hello.
It always starts with yourself, and what you're radiating out. If millions of people do that, it's a gigantic difference. So don't think any of these things are not very important. Allow be more considerate of others. I mean, that's just such a no-brainer to me. Like, why would you wouldn't do something to somebody you wouldn't want done to you? It comes back to the golden rule. But be
Absolutely.
considerate of them in all ways that you can. Just I was thinking of this yesterday when there was a couple going into a place that I was going into, and they were older and moved slower, and they were half the distance to the door that I was. And I thought, if I walk my normal pace, I'm going to get to that door before them because I'm tall with long legs and I walk fast. And I thought, and that feels rude. I'm going to stroll. I'm not going to let them get to that door first because it was getting onto a waiting list. And I just thought, I'm going to let them, they got there first. I'm going to let them get on that list first. And I know it's a little thing, but these are all kind of little things that add up to a big thing. Here's one that's interesting. You would probably never think of this. It's something I've been following, but it's if you ditch fast fashion, which is just buying cheap clothes made cheaply, they're not high quality, and embrace this new slow fashion movement. And if that's a new term to you, it means designing, creating, and buying garments that are high quality and have longevity. And why is that important to make the world a better place? It encourages slower production schedules, which is less electricity, less water used, fair wages, which makes so many people's lives better in countries that really need that, lower carbon footprints, and can even lead to zero waste. So kind of along with that, I'll bring that up in a minute, but that's one that most people wouldn't think of, but it's kind of a relief when you think about it. Let's just buy less clothes. That's what it comes down to. Buy less clothes and buy clothes that are going to last long. People laugh at me. They're like, you have clothes, you're getting rid of clothes you've had since the 80s. They look really good. I'm like, I buy quality things at a clearance price and they last decades. That's the thing about that. So I think I embraced the slow fashion movement in the 80s.
I said just go naked. I'm good with that.
There you go. Cherry Ann's solution.
You'll save a lot of fair
Lots
wages.
of sunscreen.
Yeah, then you have to invest in that, I guess, right?
Another one we talk about, the three of us, oh my gosh, all the time in our sessions, is be forgiving. Forgiveness it can be the root of so many things that are hurting in our body, hurting in our mind and our emotions. Forgive people faster, forgive them easier. It's never about saying what they did was okay, but it's releasing yourself, and it's also coming back to not being so hard on people.
And forgive yourself.
And yourself. Oh my gosh, and yourself. Hugely on yourself.
We are so hard on ourselves.
I'm really hard on myself, and I have to talk myself down. Like you're not supposed to, you never expected to be perfect. You did the best you could with what you knew and what you had at the time. That was 30, 40 years ago. You need to forgive yourself, and I'll sit down and do that forgiveness prayer for myself because I realize I'm beating myself up about something I can't go back and fix. I've learned from it. What more can you do? So I don't know. I think that one thing I like to do, I'm not perfect at it, so don't think I do this 100%. I try. Is if something happens and it upsets me, I do try to stop and think, like, why might they have said that, done that, felt that way? 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something going on with them. Maybe it triggered something from their past, or they're not feeling good, they're hangry. We were talking about a minute ago. They're in a bad mood, they're dumping their emotions on you. I mean, there's just so many things. Think about it. Don't personalize it. Let's slide in a little push for that book, The Four Agreements, because there's a whole section in there. Don't take things personally. And that book.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people do. It's right. It's like, what is it about me that they don't like, or I must have done something? And like you said, 9 times out of 10, it's not about you. It's about them. What's going on in their moment in their life. Did they have a fight with their spouse? I know if I fight with my spouse and then I go to work, I'm not really going to be wanting to talk or help anybody, you know, so you have to really get into that space again. But I think as a society, you know, we don't even think about other people, and we need to go back to that. We need to go back to thinking, you know, what could be going on with them that they're acting out like this, like a child would. I mean, you don't see children act out with bad behavior for any reason. You know, that negative behavior, you know, comes from wanting attention from somewhere a lot of times, or they have their own pain that they're going through. So you have to look at that almost as if you would look like at a child, right?
And that's a really good point, because a lot of people, when they are angry, when they're lashing out, it's because they don't have the emotional maturity or the tools in their kit to communicate what their feelings are. I'm upset about this, you did that, and I'm upset about that. Instead, they lash out. Children will have tantrums, sometimes adults have tantrums, but we're not going to get into that right now. But people, even adults, can act in ways that are irrational lots of times, but it's usually because they don't know how to put the words out to express what's really going on. So if you come back and you think, okay, I really did do something wrong, well, that gives you your chance to apologize to them and try and make it right. But otherwise, let it go. That's something they're going through. It wasn't about you. Doesn't mean you take abuse. If it continues and it's abusive, that needs to be addressed, but don't take it personally. Oh, I like this one. Walk through life with honesty and integrity. Living your life in a way that you'll be proud of and people will speak well of, that you did what you said you would do, you know, that you didn't do anything underhanded. That's huge. Not enough of that going on.
I think we see more of that. I've seen more of that recently than I have maybe in the past 5 or 6 years, 4 years. Because I think people are looking around and going, well, it is kind of the golden rule thing too, but people are looking around and going, I don't want to be like that person. They see bad behavior, you know, quote unquote, unacceptable conduct, and they go, I don't want to be seen like that. And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person.
And I don't want to hang around people that are like that because I don't want to be associated with that either.
Yeah.
So
So
that's a big one to me, is like, if you say you're going to do something, then you need to do it, whether it's with your children, your spouse, your friends, your work, your clients, whatever it is. Don't promise you're going to do something or say you're going to do something if you're not sure you can do it. And if you can't do it, do your best to make it right. That's the integrity part of it. And I think this comes back kind of what we talked about a little bit about avoiding the news if you need to, is try to really read and pass on stories of hope, positive, you know, resilience and love, things that have uplifting. You know, that's what you want to put your attention to right now. That's what you want to watch. If you're going to watch something on TV, watch that. Hard to find, but it's out there. Read something that's on those topics, talk about those topics, because that all has energy, it all has a frequency that we all need more of. But if you are watching dark things and reading dark things and talking about it, it's got the exact opposite effect. So again, another way that you have so much more power than you might realize. I have to throw this out there because if I didn't, I wouldn't be me. And that's the top 10 ways. There's so many ways, but the top 10 ways you as an individual can help the environment, which really is making the world a better place. We want to have clean air, clean water, enough food for everybody, make it keep our beautiful world beautiful, have our animals, have our marine life thriving. So number one, as an individual, is don't throw food away. Just buy less of it and make sure you use it all. It's huge. Anything that goes into landfills just makes a bigger and bigger problem. Number two is shop locally and organically as you can. So if you're getting it locally, odds are it probably is organic, but If you can't shop locally, try to buy organic just because we want to reduce pesticides. A huge one, avoid buying single-use plastic. And I'm going to expand that. Avoid buying plastic as much as you can. If you have it, use it till it cannot be used anymore, because there's no point in throwing it in the landfill. It's still going to sit there for thousands of years, maybe forever, and never disintegrate. But don't buy any more of it. You know, there's alternatives to that. Do some research. There's things that are glass containers. There's biodegradable bags. There's all kinds of things out there. Good news is, while we were all consumed with politics and COVID, somebody invented a type of replacement for plastic that breaks down. It's biodegradable, it's lasting, and it's good for healthy for the environment. And they're in mass production of it already, and lots of companies are buying into it. So there's some real hope coming on there that pretty soon you can get some items that work like plastic but don't have the negative lifespan of it. Another one is recycle. Find out what you can recycle in your area and recycle it. And here in Sedona, we're lucky. We have a recycling center. You probably do in your neighborhood too, that takes things that the trash companies won't pick up. Big blocks of styrofoam, light bulbs, certain kinds of light bulbs, certain kinds of batteries. You can take things there, glass that our recycling won't pick up at the street. So you can take a lot of things to be recycled, and yeah, it takes some effort, but that's a big, big difference you're making. Be conservative with water use. It's something here in Arizona that I've had drummed into me for decades, but a lot of people, you know, don't really think about it. And you need to be careful, even like with the laundry that you do. Don't do small loads, do full loads. Here's another huge one. Eat as little meat as possible, and particularly beef, chicken, and pork, because the production of those are extremely damaging to the environment. And it's not, I don't think you have to eliminate it completely, but there are some amazing plant replacements of these foods. I've tried the beef and the chicken ones. I haven't seen a pork one yet, but the beef one is pretty darn amazing. Cut down or eliminate the use of herbicides and pesticides, you know, especially on your own property, and the cleaning products that you use. All of those things go into our water supply eventually. No matter how you use them, they go into our water supply. So we're poisoning our own water supply through that, and the ground. Use less electricity, because that has a big carbon footprint in creating it. Drive an electric or gas efficient vehicle. And if you can't do that, work towards it. Buy used clothing, and also sell your own clothing. I found out something recently. As a major environmentalist, that appalled me. 80% of the clothing donated to resale centers, like donation centers, ends up in landfills or overseas in those huge used clothing markets. Frankly, I think it's fine if it ends up overseas, sold to people in street markets. I don't care. But in the landfill, that is appalling. So there's all kinds of people and places that are looking for clothing that isn't really wearable anymore, but they want the fabric for things they're making. So you could even find local people who want it. Instead of taking it to a donation center, I think that it's probably not the place to take clothing anymore because of this recent revelation. So there's tons more things, and I did say sometime we will do a show on everything you can do to help the environment. Not everything, because there's too many, but more things you can do to help the environment. But I'll get off my soapbox with that one. I could talk for days about that topic. I think prayer is another one. I'm finding more people who are starting to pray for the first time in their adult life, coming out in sessions recently. That's a very hopeful sign.
I really can't imagine trying to, make it, trying to survive without prayer and affirmation and, faith. daily, to be able to communicate with um, the angels and guides that have been with me all my life, that I could see all my life.
Mhm.
You know, I can't imagine not communicating with them and being involved in prayer and affirmation. I just think it would be such a horrible, lonely experience. And I think as we're going through this period of the awakening with the veils thinning and everything, there are a lot of people now who suddenly can actually see on the other side like we do. And
Yeah.
it scares them to death at the beginning, but once they figure out that, you know, it it really isn't that woo woo. This is a thing that we could always do, that we have the ability to do. And if we can tap into that, it facilitates change. That's very powerful in your daily life. And
I
yeah,
think it opens them up to seeing there's more. There's just
yeah,
more than what we've been able to see. There's more than what we've been able to hear. And
more than
now
what we've been told.
more than what we've been told. And so now
Yeah,
they're experiencing it, right? And they're like, so I think that goes in with the faith and the trust, right? So you're seeing more, feeling more, hearing more. You're able to actually, internalize that, yes, there is more out there besides just me, besides what I've been told, besides what I've been told to believe or who I should be. And now it's like exploded everywhere, right? I think it's so wonderful. We've talked about how we thought it was going to be so great and everything, and I think it is.
I think it is too. It's interesting what it takes to get people to that point, but sometimes it is, and it has to be an extreme wake up call. And I think that's what 2020 is about.
yeah. Everybody talks about how awful 2020 has been, but in many ways, 2020 has been the eye opener of our lifetimes.
It has.
You know, to actually see the, all of this changing energy and all of the people experiencing, suddenly seeing the battle basically between the light and the dark. And there's still a lot of people out there who say, oh, there is no dark. That's, I mean, that's a fantasy, and it's a good one, but it's not real.
I think it's a dangerous fantasy because it's like you're in the battle and you don't want to acknowledge it, so you don't put your spiritual armor on. It makes you very vulnerable to the dark. So I worry about people who refuse to see darkness, refuse to acknowledge that evil really exists. I don't think we need to be afraid all the time. That's also damaging to our spiritual armor. But to be aware, you need to be aware of the reality of life, of a situation, and that is a reality, whether we like it or not.
And it's going on and it's everywhere. And I think
Every
it's
day.
prevalent now and people are really starting to see it. So I agree with you guys. I think it's wonderful that eyes have been opened and people are waking up to, yeah, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we've been told or what we know. And the news is one of those things, going back to the news again, they perpetrate that fear. They perpetrate division. They want us to be divided. So the more that we can stand in our light and just shine that light outwards. I mean, the thing I think that works really well for me is in the morning when I do my prayer and affirmations, is sending that light out to the world.
Yeah.
Having us all join together in this circle, this sacred energetic container of light, and coming together and keep visualizing that. And I think, like you said, Roz, the more people that do that, I think we will all come together.
It is so powerful. It is so powerful. And I mean, since I, am awake a lot in the middle of the night, that's a lot of the time when I do what I describe as, my light work, my light warrioring, where I'm working on different situations, different things that I am shown to put my energy, to direct my light into. and to call out others who do light work, to assist so that our energies and our frequencies align together. And we're working on different projects. I think of them as projects that we're assigned. Sort of, if we're shown something that needs to be corrected, that needs to be worked on, you know, that's a world changer right there. Just that you are shown this, you acknowledge that you can be a part of changing that, and then you move to do that with your energy. So it's really a powerful time.
It is, and kind of along with that, I think that if you are listening and you know you have a mission and you've been waffling about stepping into it, this is the time to step into it. This is the time to get really brave, find your core of strength, and step into your mission, because this time right now is why we're here. It's why we're here. So as a light worker, that's something hugely powerful you can do, is do the work you were sent here to do.
And if you don't know how to start, look for a mentor. I mean, my first mentor, I don't even remember how we came together. It was just by the universe, and she taught me just beautiful things, and I carry them with me today still. So I always say to my clients and my students too, if you don't understand, you don't know how to get from A to B, because a lot of times you're like, well, I want to help and I want to do this. And for me, it was going into human services and trying to help that way. Like Ivory, you did mental health. And so it was like, we wanted to help. We just didn't know how we were going to do that. And so we took that traditional approach until, Spirit said, well, there's a more heavier mission for you to follow now, so go that way. But I think just taking the first step, looking for a mentor, finding out what you can about, spiritual awakenings or what you're experiencing, and looking for those like-minded people that you need.
And I think you ask too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did, like I did, like you reach this point where you're like, okay, I don't exactly know how to do this, so show me. I mean, send me the right direction, send me the connection, and then it happens. I just had a client in here, and it was so interesting because she's so gifted, and she's just been very busily living her life. She has a business she runs, and but she's always helping people, always working with people, always sending her light out. And I think there are so many people out there like this that have been just quietly doing their thing, all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And now the time is here. The time has come when I always say this affirmation every morning about, I am connecting with the universe-wide, multiverse-wide web of light warriors and workers. And that collaboration of all of our energy facilitates the change that needs to happen.
And for some of the people out there, understand that your mission might be doing exactly what you're doing, talking to people, helping people as you go through your life. You don't have to open an office and declare yourself to be a psychic, a spiritual counselor, to do your mission. Your mission might be exactly what you're already doing, but if you're called to do something more, like Carrie Ann was saying, like I worked in mental health and I loved it. I helped people. I loved my clients. I was very passionate, but my angels said, now you have to leave and do your spiritual work full time. And I really went kicking and screaming. Like, I don't want to do it, but I did it because I know better than to not take strong guidance from them like that. And it's great. I still get to do counseling, so I think that's why they had me get into mental health, because, and they just came in real strongly. Was so I'd have those skills to bring into this work and what I do now. It's definitely been a journey of intention, but it seemed haphazard in a way, like radio, mental health, spiritual work, but I use all those things. Marketing. Roger,
Yeah,
you
they're
talked about that.
connected.
Our marketing backgrounds give us the business advantage.
But it does sometimes seem like it's a spiral, like you're going. I know my parents would always say to me when I was little, like, oh, you start one thing and you never finish it, and then you're on to the next. But that's the way my life seems to have been. It's like I've
Yeah.
been looking and searching for and trying out all these different hats until I was guided to where I was supposed to be. But I think we take that experience, like you were saying, with us.
Yeah, so probably you hadn't gotten all of the experience and knowledge and information you were supposed to have before you start your mission. And as soon as you were, it was powerful. I remember that. You coming in and talking to Roz about her session with you and how you talking about how powerful that whole experience was. Of you thought we would think you're crazy, which we did not. But that's
Well,
something
you
we
might
hear a
think I'm
lot.
a little crazy, but
Yeah, you're crazy in a good way. Lots of people come to us and say, I think I'm going crazy. I did that. I've talked about it before. I did that before I worked in mental health. I was working in radio and I had this massive spiritual awakening, and I was seeing interdimensional beings and they were hanging out in my room every night and touching me, and it was just wigging me out. I didn't know what was going on. And I went and saw a counselor at the place I ended up working at. And of all the people, I didn't know how miraculous it was then, but now I know, out of as conservative as almost everybody at that agency was, she knew exactly what was happening. She's like, you're having a spiritual awakening. You're seeing interdimensional beings, and it's okay. You know, this is what this means. And wait, I'm hearing my angel ears going crazy right now. Hearing a high pitched ringing. That's really what set me on my journey, was that year and a half of every night visitations by these astral beings, craziness. So I understand when people come to me and they say, I think I'm going crazy, I know where they're at. I can really empathize. I think, Terry Ann, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know, Roz, if you ever felt that way. The angels never freaked me out. Spirit did freak me out sometimes, but these astral beings were a whole different story. I couldn't wrap my head around things. I couldn't figure out what it was, you know, and they were touching me. So that's another story.
I actually sounds so weird, but I mean, I actually remember before I got here, before I was born. And I remember, you know, things from previous lives when I was not in a human form. And I had a few years ago, there's an author that approached me, and she said, I'm writing a book about people who were spiritually, you know, conscious before they arrived, and I've heard about you, and I would like to write about you or have your story. So it was the first time I had ever written that. It is the first time I had ever really talked to anybody about that, about my knowing when I was really young. I mean, remembering coming here, remembering kind of my assignment, you know. And I was a really crazy little kid, really hyper, really kinetically, you know, did all kinds of psychokinetic stuff that drove my poor mom crazy. Collecting little pieces of rocks and crystals when I was a little kid, and of course didn't ever take them out of my pocket. And then she'd try to do the laundry, and her whole laundry be full of rocks, you know. So I think my experience is not that unusual, but just not talked about that much, because I think when you have that moment where you wake up and you go, wait a minute, why am I really here? Like, we're all out there, we're working our regular job. That's a huge wake up call. And the interesting thing about 2020 to me is how many people did a head-on with that this year because of the pandemic. So I've heard both of you guys, and we've discussed this. Maybe the pandemic is not the horrible experience spiritually that it is being portrayed as. I mean, my heart breaks for these people who are losing. I mean, there's so many people losing everything that they've worked for.
That is horrible.
And it's awful. And I'm I'm pretty convinced it's intentional, and that bothers me, very
That's
much.
Dark doing it?
Huh?
You mean the dark attacking?
Yeah, I think taking away everybody's means of support, their businesses, their careers, I'm not convinced that that's not a massive attack by the dark.
Oh yeah, I believe that as well.
So, and I think there are people who have tried to say that without saying it
You're saying
as much, but
it.
I'm real happy to just put it out there. There's people who have worked their whole lives for their businesses, for their everything that they have worked so hard for. They're losing all of that stuff. And so you have to look at these things in their perspective, but I feel like we're at this amazing point where we can look back. I mean, I know both of you ladies have had these childhood experiences where you were kind of like going, wait a minute, what's really going on here? Why? What's going on? And
Yeah. And remembering them, I think I've had a more remembrance recently than I've had before. Um, and that's really interesting for me. But I did have a remembrance as a child, and there was really nobody to speak to about it then. There was
Right.
nobody that was, open enough to talk to or share that experience with. So I think as children, we are very open. I mean, both Anthony and Sophia both told me, out of my 4 children, those 2, that they chose me. They were both about 3 years old too when they had the remembrance that they chose me to be their mom. So I thought it was very interesting at the time. Anthony, I was not spiritually open at that time. Sophia, I was just starting to spiritually open. So I was more apt to believe what she said. With Anthony, I was like, whatever.
So that's another thing
But
people can do, is provide support to one another. Find other people that are starting to wake up. Find other people that believe these things and think this way, and be friends with them and talk about these things.
yeah, I always say find your tribe, the importance of your tribe and your soul sisters,
soul
right?
family. Yep. Gotta connect with your soul family.
Well, it's a big part of survival through this time, and I don't think we can emphasize that enough. So something you can do for yourself and others is going to be finding your tribe, whatever that may be. When we say a spiritual circle, we mean a group of people who are like-minded. They don't have to be the same place you are on your spiritual journey, but on a spiritual journey, above, ahead of you, behind you. You help each other. There's such relief in being able to talk about your thoughts, your beliefs, your experiences with people who are not going to judge it, but go, oh my gosh, I had that same thing, or I thought that same thing, or that's what I believe too. You need that. So give that to yourself. If you don't have one in your area, twice I've started my own because there was none. So I just started one, and they're still going. Even though I moved away, they still are going because people need that, and that's something you can provide too. It used to be, you were saying, Terry, and you can't remember how your first spiritual teacher came into your life. And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, how? Because it was a long time ago, like the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember going into Lifeway's bookstore, which I think still exists in Prescott. And there's a bulletin board in there back then of spiritual groups and seances and interesting things. And I saw a note for this woman, Belinda Howell. She's not in Prescott anymore, so She's somewhere in Kingman, I think. But she was my first spiritual teacher, and she taught me such a huge variety of things over the 2 years I worked with her. But it was a really good awakening. It was right after all the weird stuff was happening with the astral beings, and it was just that I was meant to start on this journey, and I had resisted it. I've known since I was 18 that I'm supposed to do this work, and I resisted it. It's like, nope, nope, that's not what I want to do. Nope.
Yeah.
But I did it on
Yeah.
the side for a long time, secretly, and that was good. But right now we can't afford to keep doing things in secret. So if you want to make the world a better place, step into your mission. We talked about that. Probably cannot emphasize that one quite enough.
Cool.
Anything else you want to talk about of making the world a better place?
No, in fact, I've got to go because I have a 1 o'clock.
No problem. Well, thank you for watching the Sedona Soul Sisters show. If you would like more information about us and our services, visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Tune in next Friday when our topic is telepathic connection with soulmates. That's going to be a fun one. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.